Red amaranth can give you a first harvest in about 30 days, but that means tender young leaves, not a guaranteed container full of mature plants in every climate. Hi, I'm May from May's Chinese Garden. Let's sow it correctly, avoid the 3 mistakes that slow it down, and make the first cut without sacrificing the next harvest. First, buy an edible red variety specifically sold for harvesting as leafy greens. Red amaranth is one of the best greens for the part of the year when crops such as spinach and bok choy struggle with heat. It is a warm season annual with colorful edible leaves. Depending on where you live, it may also be sold as Chinese spinach. Red leaf amaranth, red callaloo, xian, or Amaranthus tricolor. Do not buy seed based only on the word amaranth. Some varieties are selected mainly for grain. Others are tall ornamental plants grown for dramatic flowers. For this container, choose an edible vegetable or leafy variety specifically sold for harvesting as greens. That one decision affects the color, tenderness, plant size, and speed of the crop. Now choose the container according to the harvest you want. For a useful patch of young leaves, use a wide pot, window box, or growing tray at least 18 inches across and roughly 8 to 12 inches deep. Width gives you room for several plants. Depth gives the roots a more stable supply of water. A deeper container also dries more slowly, which matters because amaranth can tolerate heat better than many leafy greens, but still produces better leaves with steady moisture. Every container needs open drainage holes. Do not add a sealed inner liner and do not place rocks or broken pottery in the bottom. Those materials take away root space and do not correct a container that cannot drain. If you are reusing a pot, clean away old roots, mineral deposits, and growing mix before planting. A container that previously held diseased plants should be cleaned and disinfected according to reliable local guidance before it returns to food production. Fill the pot with fresh, good quality potting mix. Do not use dense garden soil by itself. Ground soil can compact inside a container, restricting drainage and making the tiny seedlings harder to manage. Mix in mature compost if the potting mix needs more organic matter, but do not turn the container into pure compost. The mixture still needs enough structure and air around the roots. Leave a small gap below the rim so water can soak in without carrying seeds and potting mix over the side. Before sowing, decide where the container will live. Red amaranth grows fastest in warm conditions and strong light. Full sun is ideal in many climates, although some afternoon protection may help in places with extreme heat. The University of Florida reports optimum growth at roughly 70 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 to 29 degrees Celsius. Seeds germinate rapidly once the soil is warm, but growth can be much slower in cool conditions. Wait until frost danger has passed. A 30-day harvest clock should begin when the crop has genuine growing weather, not when tiny seeds are sitting in a cold pot. If your nights are still chilly, keep the container in the warmest protected position available or delay sowing. Amaranth cannot perform like a tropical leafy vegetable while being treated like an early spring spinach. Now moisten the potting mix before planting. It should be evenly damp, not muddy. The seeds are extremely small. Sow them only 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch deep. In practical terms, place them on the surface and cover them with the thinnest layer of fine mix. This is the first major mistake, burying the seed deeply. A large bean has enough stored energy to push through a substantial layer of soil. A tiny amaranth seed does not. Deep sowing delays emergence and may prevent it completely. For an organized container, make shallow rows a few inches apart and place the seeds approximately 1 inch apart within them. You do not need perfect spacing at this stage because we will thin the seedlings later. Do not empty the whole packet into one corner. A dense clump may germinate, but the seedlings will stretch, compete, and trap moisture around one another. After sowing, mist or water with a very gentle flow. A powerful stream can move every seed to the edge of the pot. Keep the surface consistently moist while the seeds germinate. Because the seeds sit close to the top, that thin surface layer can dry long before the rest of the container feels dry. Do not compensate by flooding the entire pot several times a day. Use a fine spray or gentle watering method that keeps the seed zone damp without leaving the roots in standing water. In suitable warmth, germination often begins in about 1 week. The first leaves are seed leaves, also called cotyledons. They do not yet show the full shape or color of the mature plant. This is where the 30-day transformation becomes visible. During the first week, you are protecting a damp surface. During the second week, you begin managing real plants. Once the seedlings develop true leaves, inspect their spacing. If your only goal is one dense baby leaf harvest, plants can remain closer together for a short time. But if you want stronger plants that can produce repeated harvests, thin them gradually until the best seedlings have about 6 inches of space. Do not throw every thinning away. Healthy young seedlings can be harvested as baby greens once they are large enough to handle and have been grown in clean conditions. Cut unwanted seedlings at soil level rather than pulling them from directly beside the plants you want to keep. Pulling a dense seedling can disturb the roots of its neighbor. Look for the seedlings with strong stems, healthy leaves, and the color expected from your variety. Remove weak, damaged, or badly crowded plants first. Spacing feels wasteful for about 2 days. Then the remaining plants begin expanding into the open light and the decision makes sense. Now give the crop steady care rather than constant interference. Check the potting mix with your finger. When the surface starts to dry, water slowly until excess drains from the bottom. Water across the whole container. Not only around the largest plant, several root systems are sharing that space. In hot or windy weather, a container may need checking every day. A dark plastic pot in full sun can become much hotter and drier than the soil in a garden bed. The second major mistake is believing that drought tolerance means good leaves without water. Established amaranth can survive dry periods, but severe water stress can trigger early flowering and reduce the leafy harvest. Repeated wilting can also give you smaller, tougher leaves. The opposite mistake is keeping the pot permanently saturated. Excess water and poor airflow around crowded plants encourage root and stem problems. Aim for steady, moderate moisture. Never a swamp and never bone dry for days. If the potting mix already contains fertilizer, let the seedlings use it before adding more. Once growth is established, feed only according to a suitable vegetable fertilizer label or a genuine sign that the mix is depleted. Do not apply strong nitrogen fertilizer every few days to force darker leaves. University of Florida guidance warns that excessive inorganic nitrogen can contribute to nitrate accumulation in vegetable amaranth, and extra fertilizer has not consistently produced dramatically higher yields. Good light, root space, warmth, and water are more useful than repeatedly increasing the feed. Around the second and third weeks, inspect the leaves carefully. Flea beetles can create many small holes. Caterpillars and other chewing insects may remove larger sections, and young seedlings can be damaged quickly because each leaf represents a large part of the plant. Check both sides of the leaves and look into the center of the plant. Do not choose a treatment from the holes alone. Identify what is causing them. A fine insect barrier installed early can protect young plants where those pests are common, but secure it so insects cannot enter underneath. Remove or raise any cover that begins restricting the plants or causing excessive heat. If you use any pest control product, it must be labeled for the pest and permitted on edible leafy crops. Follow the full label, including the required time between application and harvest. Now we reach day 20, and this is where you should decide what first harvest means for your container. You have 3 choices. The first is a one-time baby leaf harvest. This gives you the earliest bowl of greens, but it ends the crop if you cut or pull every plant. The second is picking only the largest outer leaves. This gives a smaller first harvest while leaving the growing centers intact. The third is cutting tender tops from well-established plants just above a leaf node. This encourages side shoots and can produce another harvest later. For the best balance, combine these methods. Harvest some crowded plants completely as baby greens, creating more space. Leave the strongest plants in the container for repeated picking. That way, the thinning you needed to do becomes the first part of the harvest rather than garden waste. By approximately day 30, warm-grown vegetable amaranth may be ready for its first useful cut. University of Florida guidance gives roughly 30 days from seed, while other extension sources describe 5 to 6 weeks for a larger bunching harvest. Those are not contradictory promises. They describe different sizes and growing conditions. For an early harvest, look for plants around 8 inches tall with several healthy, true leaves. The leaves should feel tender, and the stem tip should still be soft enough to cut easily. Do not harvest by the calendar if the plants are still 2 inches tall. Cold weather, deep sowing, shade, crowding, or inconsistent water may have delayed them. Correct the problem and let the plants grow. Harvest during the cool part of the day if possible. Use clean scissors and a clean container. For individual leaves, take the largest tender leaves while leaving enough foliage and the central growing point for recovery. For tender shoot tips, cut just above a healthy leaf node and leave several lower leaves on the plant. Those leaves continue collecting energy, while buds near the cut can form side shoots. Do not cut every stem level with the potting mix if you expect regrowth. A plant without healthy leaves or viable growing points has very little with which to rebuild. The third major mistake is taking such a dramatic first harvest that there is no second harvest. As a simple rule, the younger and smaller the plant, the less you should take from it. A mature, branching plant can lose more growth than a 4-week-old seedling and still recover. After cutting water if the mix needs it, but do not pour fertilizer over the plant as an emergency response. Give it warmth, light, and time. New shoots may become harvestable roughly 10 to 14 days later when conditions are good. North Carolina research guidance describes harvesting leaves and branches at intervals of about 10 to 14 days once plants reach 1 to 2 feet tall. Your container may not follow that exact schedule. Wait until the shoots are tender and the plant has rebuilt enough leaf area before cutting again. If regrowth is pale and weak, check 4 things: light, moisture, root crowding, and nutrition. Do not assume fertilizer is always the answer. You can also start a second container 2 weeks after the first. Succession sowing gives you young plants while the older container is recovering, and it reduces the temptation to strip one crop bare. As the plants age, watch the center and top of each stem. Once amaranth begins flowering, it produces fewer desirable leaves and the texture can become less tender. Severe drought and other stress can encourage flowering earlier than you wanted. If a plant begins sending up a flower head, harvest the remaining good leaves promptly. You can remove the flower head, but pinching it off does not turn an old stressed plant back into a brand new seedling. Do not let unwanted plants produce mature seed in or around the container. Amaranth can produce large numbers of seeds, and related species are serious weeds in many regions. At that point, replacing the crop with a fresh succession is often more productive than fighting to keep an aging plant leafy. Red amaranth wilts quickly after cutting, so do not leave the harvest in direct sun. Move it into a cool place immediately. Remove damaged leaves, rinse the greens under clean running water before use, dry them, and refrigerate them promptly if you are not cooking them straight away. The tender leaves and soft stems can be cooked like other leafy greens. They work well in stir-fries, soups, stews, egg dishes, or simply cooked with garlic. Vegetable amaranth can contain naturally occurring nitrates and oxalates. Cooking reduces some of these compounds, so avoid making exaggerated health claims or treating enormous quantities of raw amaranth as medicine. Anyone with a medical condition affected by oxalate or mineral intake should follow personalized professional advice. Now let's diagnose the most likely failures before they ruin the 30-day target. If very few seeds emerge, the mix may be cold, the seed may be old, or you may have buried it too deeply. If the seedlings emerge and then collapse at the base, overcrowding, excess moisture, contaminated equipment, or damping off disease may be involved. Improve airflow, use clean materials, and do not reuse the affected mix for another seedling batch. If the plants are tall, thin, and mostly green rather than richly colored, insufficient light is a likely cause. Genetics also matter, so verify that you bought a red leafy variety. If the leaves have many holes, inspect for flea beetles, caterpillars, and other chewing pests instead of feeding the damaged plants. If the plant flowers while still small, look for cold stress, drought, root restriction, late transplanting, or another interruption to growth. And if the first harvest never grows back, ask whether you left healthy leaves and growing points. Cut and come again works only when enough living plant remains to come again. So here is the complete 30-day plan. Choose an edible red vegetable amaranth, not a random ornamental or grain variety. Use a wide, freely draining container with at least 8 to 12 inches of quality potting mix. Wait for warm weather and place the pot in strong light. Sow the tiny seed only 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch deep. Keep the surface moist and expect germination in roughly a week. Thin gradually, leaving about 6 inches around the plants you want to keep for repeated harvests. Maintain steady moisture, avoid excessive nitrogen, and inspect young leaves for chewing pests. Around day 30, harvest crowded seedlings and tender leaves first. Leave the strongest plants with several lower leaves and intact growing points. Then let those plants branch and recover while a second container begins growing behind them. That is how the title becomes honest. The first harvest can arrive in 30 days. But the smarter reward is turning that early cut into several later harvests. Tell me in the comments whether you would harvest the whole container young or keep several plants for repeat cutting. And subscribe, because next time we'll turn supermarket lemongrass into a full living pot.